display. How does it actually connect or resonate with that history we talked about, the patron saints in medieval Italy?
Right.
We see how this fascinating project uses cutting-edge technology. But to truly understand its resonance, I think we need to really look back at that historical precedent, finding meaning and connection through figures like patron saints.
Okay, yeah, let's travel back in time a bit. The exploration of patron saints really highlights their role as protectors and intermediaries. They offered spiritual comfort, sure, but they were also looked to for defense against the very real hardships of the time: illness, war, famine, all that stuff.
The core of it seems to be this really fundamental human desire for security and protection, doesn't it? Both physical and spiritual. In a world filled with uncertainty, these saints offered a sense of divine favor, a focal point for community hopes, and let's be honest, probably their fears too.
Absolutely. And how did a town or a city actually choose their patron saint? It seems like it was a combination of factors.
The sources mention their virtuous life, obviously that's important, but also historical links to the place, and crucially, attributed miracles. Was a big deal, apparently.
Makes perfect sense. A miracle confirms the saint's power and favor, right? And the roots of this tradition go way back, even before Christianity.
To ancient Rome.
Yeah, to the Numina Tutelaria, the sort of guardian spirits tied to specific places and people. Early Christian saint veneration really built upon that existing idea, that need for localized protection.
And this sense that a community almost possessed a saint?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like having their relics, their physical remains, that was incredibly significant, right?
Oh, absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
Communities believed that possessing the relics ensured special favor, special protection. It was almost seen as a reciprocal agreement, you know.
Sort of a spiritual give and take. The community offers prayers, reverence, maybe builds a church.
Lights candles, holds feasts.
Right. And in return, the saint is expected to intervene when needed, to intercede on their behalf with God.
It's interesting how the devotion varied, too. You had the universally known saints, like the Virgin Mary or John the Baptist.
Sure, the big names.
But then you also had these really local figures, deeply tied to specific relics or a particular town.
And that local focus really underscores the identity aspect, doesn't it? The saint became a powerful symbol of shared history, a unique spiritual connection for that specific place.
We see some great examples the sources mention. San Nicola in Bari, San Marco in Venice.
San Gennaro in Naples.
Oh yeah, San Gennaro. And Santiago de Compostela with St. James. They're almost inseparable from their cities, even today.
Definitely. And then, as these Italian communes, these city-states, grew stronger in the Middle Ages, they often actively promoted their own patron saint cults.
Right, it wasn't just grassroots.
No, it became a way to assert civic authority, sometimes even intentionally positioning themselves against the power of the local bishop.
Oh, interesting. So you had this intersection of politics and faith. Very medieval.
Absolutely. Siena and their devotion to the Madonna is a prime example. Her feast day became a major city celebration, and it was even historically linked to winning battles, like Monteperti.
Wow. So the saint wasn't just a religious figure. They were almost an embodiment of the city itself. Like a mascot, but much more profound.
Exactly. Venice with San Marco, Florence with San Giovanni Battista. They adopted these distinct civic patrons. And then you have Lucca and the Volto Santo, this revered icon.
Holy face.
Yeah, with actual civic duties tied to its veneration. Like, city officials had roles in the ceremonies.
It's incredible integration. And then there's the story of Pistoia adopting San Jacopo St. James.
Right, because they believed he protected them from an attack, and then they went and acquired his relics. That really shows the process.
It does. That story really illustrates how these cults could grow and solidify, and sometimes leading to a city having both a civic patron and a separate cathedral patron. These layered loyalties.
Yeah, it wasn't always simple.
And the source material points out that the communes were able to do this partly because they were wealthy, and there wasn't a strong central king or emperor exerting control across Italy at the time.
Precisely. That lack of strong central authority gave them the space to manage and promote these cults themselves. You'd even see multiple patrons in one place, like Assisi with San Rufino, San Francesco, and Santa Chiara.
All holding significant importance.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily an exclusive devotion. It really reflects that complex interplay between religious and civic life.
And it's amazing to think of the lay governments, the city councils, actively managing these cults,
Yeah.
regulating feast days, even pardoning prisoners in the saint's name.
Right, and funding offerings, processions.
Yeah, it underscores just how deeply embedded these beliefs were in the fabric of everyday life and governance, and even, in the economy. Feast days were holidays, markets might be held.
Definitely. And then there's the warfare connection we touched on, the Caruccio.
Ah, yes, the war cart.
That war cart adorned with sacred images. The Lombard League using one with San Ambrosio's image, that's such a powerful visual, isn't it?
It really is, taking your saint into battle. And the story of the Crusaders before the Battle of Padua, pinning their hopes on San Antonio because his feast day was approaching.
Believing he'd actively intervene.
Yeah, not just like spiritual support, but actual battlefield assistance.
Exactly. Tangible assistance in a crisis that was the prevailing belief that the saint could and would step in.
Okay, so let's bridge these two worlds now. We've got this deep dive into the medieval need for protection, meaning the role of saints,
Yeah.
and then this very modern digital art project. What are the strongest connections we're seeing here?
Well, I think the most compelling parallel, for me anyway, is this enduring human desire to find meaning, connection, and maybe even a sense of order through some kind of structured system.
Right. In the Middle Ages, it was the liturgical calendar, the cycle of saints' days, the rituals.
And today, perhaps the eternal display offers a different kind of daily ritual, but one mediated through technology, through AI and screens.
Both provide a framework, don't they? A focus for daily reflection. Whether it's, prayer in remembrance of a saint back then, or anticipating this new AI-generated image each day now.
Yeah, exactly. A daily touchstone. And the eternal display, by using AI to generate these images and descriptions, is offering a really contemporary interpretation of, well, maybe not the miraculous in the medieval sense.
Maybe not literal miracles.
No, but perhaps the veneration of these figures, or at least engaging with their stories in a new way.
In Touch Designer, the software itself, in this context, it feels almost like a modern-day scriptorium, doesn't it?
Oh, that's a great analogy.
A digital space for creating and sharing these updated forms of, well, maybe devotion is too strong a word still.
Engagement, remembrance.
Yes, engagement, or perhaps remembrance. Touch Designer enables this entirely new way of expressing and interacting with these timeless themes. It's not just about displaying information, it's about creating an experience,
Yeah.
right? A moment of connection each day.
And we still seem driven to create narratives around significant figures, don't we?
Absolutely.
Whether it's those medieval stories about saints, the hagiographies, there's traditional biographies focusing on virtues and miracles,
Right.
or these AI prompts imagining saints in cyberpunk cities, the impulse is similar.
Absolutely. That impulse to tell stories, to make these figures relevant to our own time, our own context, it just persists.
It really makes you wonder about the digital relics of the eternal display.
Oh, interesting concept.
The code itself, the AI models they use, that growing archive of daily images. What kind of significance could those hold in the future? Are they just data or something more?
That's a really profound question, actually. It gets at how we define sacred or culturally significant objects as technology evolves. Does meaning even require a physical form anymore? Or can digital artifacts hold that weight?
Deep thoughts. So, wow, we've journeyed from the deep roots of medieval Italian faith, the patron saints, all the way to the absolute cutting edge of interaction design.
Yeah.
All linked by these saints, the power of Touch Designer, and this very human search for something, well, eternal.
What's truly fascinating, I think, coming out of this deep dive,
Yeah.
is seeing that persistent human fascination with the idea of the eternal, and just the incredible range of ways we try to represent it and engage with it across centuries,
Yeah.
using totally different tools and technologies, from relics to AI prompts.
It really does make you wonder, though, looking forward, how might future technologies further blur these lines between the sacred and the secular?
Yeah.
And what new kinds of, digital patronage or veneration might even emerge in the digital age? That's the big question to ponder, isn't it?
Definitely something to mull over.